In this video here, we're going to look at our next type of factorisation, which is to factorise a trinomial quadratic of the form. Now, a trinomial quadratic is a quadratic, so I've got my x squared here, and it's made in three parts. So it's got an x squared term, it's got an x term, and it's got a constant term. So the values of b and c will generally be numbers. Before we go any further, I want you to write the numbers 1 to 7 in your jotter and try and answer the following questions. Remember, the sum is the result of adding two numbers and the difference is the result of taking one number away from another. Answer the 7 questions in your jotter. Press pause just now to do that and then press play when you're ready for the answers. Okay, I'll write the answers up the side here, you can check them before moving on. So pause the video, check your answers and then press play when you're ready. The next thing we're going to practice before moving on is writing out factors of numbers, but writing them out in a specific way, by writing them out in factor pairs. So factors of 16 are all of the numbers that divide exactly into 16 without leaving a remainder. I could write them out like this: 1, 2, 4, 8 and 16. So these are all the numbers that divide exactly into 16, but that's not them written as factor pairs, that's just the factors listed. So what I want to actually do is write them out in pairs. So a factor pair of 16 would be 1 and 16, because 1 times 16 go together to make 16. And then 2 times 8 go together, and then 4 goes with 4. So basically, write them out in pairs so that the two numbers in the pair multiply each other to give this number here. I'm going to get you to write out B, C, D and E. Pause the video, try and write out the factors of these numbers in factor pairs as well, and then unpause it when you're ready to go and check them. Now you've had a chance to try them, what we'll do is I'll put the answers up and you can check them by pausing the video and then pressing play when you're ready to move on. So we're now going to look at how we factorise the trinomial. Now, if we've got a trinomial of this form, x squared plus bx plus c, then it's a good idea to learn this sentence that I'm going to show you off by heart. So the sentence is basically, I need a factor pair of c with a sum or difference of b. Now you'll notice there I've highlighted 3 parts. Now these are the 3 parts that can be changed. The rest of the sentence will stay the same. You'll also notice that with this trinomial, x squared plus or minus bx plus or minus c, that there's an arrow going in this direction. So that's because we start at the end of our trinomial and work our way through. So I need a factor pair of c, so whatever number is here goes in this space, with a sum or difference, and depending on whether the sign here is a plus or a take away, in other words, say it was like plus 3, I would write sum. If it was like minus 7, I would write difference. And then keep moving across. The b here is the next value which goes at the end of the sentence. So we'll do 2 examples of that below, where I'll write out 2 trinomials and we'll show you the sentence or how to put it together. So in this first one we have x squared plus 5x minus 14. Now remember, we're going to work our way from the back of it to the front here. So this number here, 14, that's going to go in first. I need a factor pair of 14 with a, now in this section we have sum or difference, so it's based on this sign here. Now that's a take away, so that means it's a difference. So we're going to put the word difference in here. And lastly, we're looking at this. Now we're not paying attention to the sign. You'll notice the sign's not highlighted up here. It's just the 5 I'm interested in. So the 5 goes in that space. And that's a sentence that's going to help me in a minute. Okay, so I need a factor pair of 14 with a difference of 5. So a factor pair of 14 with a difference of 5. Let's look at the next one. We've got x squared minus 8x plus 15. So again, we're working our way from one side to the other here. So we need a factor pair of 15. So the 15 can go in. And then it's with a sum or difference in this space. Now because that sign there is a plus, that means it's going to be a sum, so we can put a sum. And lastly, we're looking at this number here. So we're not paying attention to the sign here, it's literally just that number 8 we're looking at. So just the 8 will go in there. And that's how we create that sentence that's going to help us find the numbers we need to factorise. So what I want you to do now is, in your classwork jotter, for each of these 4 trinomials here, I want you to write out the following sentence. I need a factor pair of something with a sum or difference of something. Remember, we're working our way from this side right across. So pause the video, try the questions, write out the sentence, and then press play when you're ready to check the answers. Okay, I'm now going to put in the answers and you can check them. So again, you might want to pause the video while you're checking them and then press play when you're ready. We'll now use all the skills we've built up in the last few slides to help us factorise the trinomial. So the first part is looking at this trinomial x squared plus 8x plus 12 and writing out our sentence. So remember, I need a factor pair of 12 with a sum of 8. So a factor pair of 12. Let's write out the factor pairs of 12. So 1 and 12 is a pair, 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. Now this is where the sentence comes in handy. We're looking for the factor pair that has a sum of 8. Now 1 and 12 have a sum of 13, so that's no use. 2 and 6 have a sum of 8, so that's the one we're looking for. 3 and 4 don't have a sum of 8, they have a sum of 7. So 2 and 6 is the factor pair I'm looking for, so I'm going to write them there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write out 2 sets of empty brackets here, because that's what it looks like when we factorise a trinomial. And to get this x squared term here, it comes from x in the first bracket multiplying x by the second bracket. So we also have chosen numbers 2 and 6 to go in here, so I'm going to put a 2 in here and a 6 in here. It doesn't matter which way around I put them, so 2 and 6 in any order. The next step is to look at this middle term. Now this middle term will come from these two numbers 2 and 6. Okay, so we're looking for positive 8x. So I need to say, how am I going to make positive 8 from the numbers 2 and 6? So if I gave you the numbers 2 and 6, how would you make positive 8? Well, you'd start off with positive 2 and you would add on 6. So we'd have positive 2 here, add on 6, and this is now fully factorised. We'll now look at the second question in exactly the same way. So we'll start off with our sentence. I need a factor pair of 21 with a difference of 4. So again, we're going to write out our factor pairs of 21 down here. So 1 times 21, 3 times 7, and I think that's my only factor pairs of 21. And I'm looking for the ones that have a difference of 4. So 1 and 21 have a difference of 20, but 3 and 7 have a difference of 4. So that's the one I'm looking for. So again, over to this side, we're going to put in our 2 brackets, and because we've got an x squared at the front, we're going to have an x at the front of each bracket, and then we're going to put in our 3 and our 7 because these are the factor pair that I've chosen. And then what we're looking for again is we're trying to create this positive 4x here. Now, if I give you, what we're going to ask is, if I give you just the numbers 3 and the number 7, how would you make positive 4 using the numbers 3 and 7? Now the easiest way to think about that, if I want to make positive 4 using the numbers 3 and 7, I would start off with 7 and I would take away 3. Now if I'm starting with 7, that's positive 7, take away 3, so I'm going to put positive in front of the 7 and I'm going to take away 3. And that then is fully factorised. That negative 3 and positive 7 will create, or help me to create, this positive 4x here. We'll now look at the last 2 examples. So example C here, we're going to start with the sentence we're going to write out. So we need a factor pair of 14 with a sum of 9. And again, what I'm going to do is write out the factor pairs of 14. Now factors of 14, I can do it by 1 times 14, and I can make 14 with 2 times 7. So they're my factor pairs of 14. The important thing again is I'm looking for the ones that have a sum of 9. These two have a sum of 15. These two have a sum of 9, which is what I want. So these are the 2 I'm going to choose. So 2 and 7. We're going to go over to this side and we're going to write out our 2 brackets to put in our numbers. X squared is going to come from x times x at the front. The 2 and 7 obviously multiply to 14, so that's where that 14 comes from. So I'm going to put in the 2 and the 7 there. And remember here, my target is to try and make this negative 9 in that middle term. So again, if I was to give you just the numbers 2 and 7, how would you make negative 9? Now, you can't really make it with just positive 2 and 7. You'd have to have both of these numbers be negative and add them together. So you'd have to start off with a negative number, negative 2, and then take away a further 7. So that's going to become negative 2 and negative 7. Now, think about that. Without the x in the brackets being there, that's negative 2, take away another 7 would give me negative 9. And that's it, fully factorised. We'll look at the last example in the same way. We'll start again with our sentence. So I need a factor pair of 12 with a difference, because this is a minus sign, with a difference of, and now there's no number here, but remember when we're doing a question like this, if I've got an x here or a negative x, remember there is a hidden 1 there, so I'm just going to write that in very quickly. So that's actually negative 1x. So starting again, I need a factor pair of 12 with a difference of 1. So again, I'm going to say, well, I need my factor pair of 12, so I'm going to write out my factor pairs of 12. 12 can be created by 1 times 12, we can do it by 2 times 6, and we can do it by 3 times 4. And again, this part here is really important. That's where the sum or difference part is important. So we're looking for the factor pair though that has a difference of 1. Now these two numbers have a difference of 11, these two numbers have a difference of 4, these two have a difference of 1, which matches what I want. So it's the 3 and 4 that I'm going to choose. And again, once I've got that 3 and 4, it's quite straightforward to start putting the brackets together. So it's x and x for my x squared, 3 and 4, which will be what makes my 12 at the end. And then my target is to make this negative 1 here. Now if I want to make that negative 1 using the numbers 3 and 4, then how would I go about doing that? So the first thing I would do is say, well, it's negative. So if I start off with positive 3 and I take away 4, that would give me negative 1. So I want that to be positive 3. And I want this one here to be negative 4. And we'll just check that works. So again, ignoring the x in the brackets, just looking at this positive 3 and this minus 4, that's positive 3, take away 4, which is negative 1. So again, that's fully factorised.